It started small. Small enough that I could pretend it wasn't anything. I used to stop by their house on Sundays, mostly out of habit. My friend Daniel still lived there while finishing grad school, and I'd tell myself I was coming over to watch whatever game was on, or to borrow his notes, or just to get out of my apartment for a few hours. But the truth is, even before I admitted it, I was timing my visits. His mom always made coffee around 4. Not fancy coffee, just the kind that smelled stronger than it tasted. The kitchen would fill with that warm, bitter scent, and she'd open the back window a little, like she didn't trust the house to hold it. The first time I noticed her noticing me, it wasn't dramatic. She was at the sink, sleeves pushed up, washing mugs. I was leaning against the counter, pretending to scroll through my phone. She asked, still taking it with 2 sugars. I looked up. Yeah. She nodded like she'd just confirmed something important. It's strange, the way being remembered can feel like being chosen. She was 46, I think. Maybe 47. There were faint lines near her eyes, not from age exactly. More like from years of squinting at things she didn't fully trust. She wore her hair loose most days, falling over one shoulder when she leaned down to grab something from a lower cabinet. I started noticing small things. The way she'd tuck her hair behind her ear when she laughed. The thin gold ring she twisted absent-mindedly when she was thinking. How her voice softened when she asked me about work, like she was actually waiting for an answer. Still at that marketing firm? She asked one afternoon. Yeah, it's fine. Fine is dangerous, she said, half smiling. People get stuck in fine. I laughed, but it felt like she'd seen something I hadn't meant to show. Daniel would disappear into his room sometimes, leaving us in the kitchen with the low hum of the refrigerator and the ticking wall clock that always sounded too loud. Those were the moments I felt it most, the quiet shift. She'd lean against the counter across from me, mug in both hands. Not close, just there. So, she said once, eyes steady on mine. Are you happy? I folded the edge of a napkin between my fingers, over and over. Yeah, I guess. She tilted her head slightly. Not judgmental, just curious. It wasn't flirtation. Not exactly. It was something slower, heavier. At night, back in my apartment, I'd sometimes open my phone and scroll to her contact. I don't know when I saved her number. Probably after she sent a group message about Daniel's birthday dinner. I typed something simple. Thanks for the coffee today. Or, that thing you said about fine, I've been thinking about it. Then I'd delete it. It felt stupid. She was my friend's mom. She'd known me since I was 19 and awkward and too quiet for my own good. But the way she looked at me now, it wasn't the same. One Sunday, as I was leaving, she walked me to the door. Daniel had already gone upstairs to take a call. Drive safe, she said. Always do. Our hands brushed when she passed me my jacket. Just barely. Static, maybe. Or maybe not. She didn't pull away quickly. Just a second too late. You know, she added, almost casually. You don't have to wait for Daniel to come over. You're allowed to visit on your own. My throat felt dry. Yeah. She smiled. Not wide. Not playful. Just certain. Of course. I stepped outside, the evening air cooler than I expected. The door closed softly behind me. Halfway to my car, my phone buzzed. A text. From her. Next Sunday, Daniel will be out of town. If you still want coffee, you know where I live. I stood there longer than I should have. It wasn't just curiosity anymore. And I think she knew it. The next Sunday felt longer than it should have. I told myself I wasn't nervous. It was just coffee. Just conversation. Daniel was out of town visiting friends, and she'd made it sound casual. Still, I changed my shirt twice. When I knocked, she opened the door almost immediately, like she'd been standing on the other side. No game today, she asked. Figured I'd survive one Sunday without it. She smiled and stepped aside. Brave. The house felt different without Daniel's music leaking under his bedroom door. Quieter. The kind of quiet that makes you aware of your own breathing. She had tea this time, not coffee. A ceramic pot between us at the kitchen table. I thought we'd try something lighter, she said. Coffee makes me jittery lately. Lately? I asked. She hesitated, fingers brushing the rim of her cup. I don't sleep much anymore. There was something in the way she said it. Not fishing for sympathy. Just stating a fact. Why not? She gave a small shrug. House feels bigger at night than it used to. I nodded like I understood. I didn't, not fully. But I recognized the tone. The kind that lives under other sentences. She divorced 3 years ago. I knew that much from Daniel. He never talked about it in detail, just called his dad complicated and changed the subject. I used to think, she continued, staring into her tea, that once your kids grow up, you'd feel finished, like you did your part. And you don't. Her lips curved, but it didn't reach her eyes. I feel visible in strange ways, invisible in others. I looked down at my hands. I'd been tracing the wood grain on the table with my thumb without realizing. You're not invisible, I said, too quickly. She met my eyes then. Really met them. That's sweet, she replied softly. But you don't have to say things like that. I'm not. The air shifted. I imagined what it would look like from the outside. Me, 26, sitting at a kitchen table with my best friend's mother, leaning forward like she was telling me a secret. It wasn't illegal. It wasn't dramatic. But it felt like crossing something invisible. She stood to refill my cup, and when she reached across me, her hand brushed my shoulder. Not by accident this time. Not fully. You've changed, she said quietly. Since when? Since you stopped needing approval. I let out a small breath. I still need it. Just not from the same people. Her eyes flicked to my mouth, then back up. Quick. Controlled. Is that so? We ended up washing the cups together, shoulder to shoulder at the sink. The window was cracked open again, letting in cool air. Our elbows bumped once. Neither of us apologized. I kept thinking about Daniel. About how easy it would be for this to unravel into something messy. I imagined him walking in, seeing the way we stood too close. Seeing the way she looked at me like she was measuring something. I should have stepped back. Instead, I said, do you ever regret it? Regret what? Staying. As long as you did. She dried her hands slowly. Sometimes. But regret is just a mirror. It shows you what you wanted more of. And what did you want more of? She didn't answer right away. Just reached up and adjusted my collar like it was slightly crooked. Her fingers lingered there. Warm. Steady. You'll figure it out, she said. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. I didn't answer her question that night. Not because I didn't have one. Because I did. And it felt too permanent to say out loud. After the park, things shifted. Not dramatically. Just enough to make me doubt what had been building between us. She stopped texting first. No more lemon cake updates. No casual "are you free?" messages in the afternoon. When I reached out, her replies were polite. Short. Timed hours apart, like she was measuring the space carefully. I told myself she was busy. Then one Sunday, I drove by anyway. I didn't plan to. My car just turned. Daniel's car was in the driveway. So was another one I didn't recognize. Dark blue sedan. Clean. Unfamiliar. I parked half a block away, telling myself I wasn't being ridiculous. I wasn't jealous. I had no claim. Still, I watched. Through the front window, I could see shadows moving. 3 figures at the dining table. One of them taller. Broader. I didn't knock. Later that night, Daniel called me. You've been avoiding us, he asked. Work's been busy. Yeah, because my dad's been over more. Mom's trying this reconciliation thing. My grip tightened around my phone. Reconciliation. Yeah, don't know if it'll stick. But he's been coming by for dinner. It's weird. I swallowed. How does she feel about it? Hard to tell, he said. She's in that mode. You know, calm, thoughtful, like she's already 10 steps ahead. I knew that mode. After we hung up, I stared at her contact for a long time. Is it true? Are you getting back together? Was this just something to pass the time? I typed all of it. Deleted all of it. 3 days later, she finally texted. I think we should take some space. That was it. No explanation. No softness around the edges. I read it 3 times, waiting for a second message to follow. It didn't. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. The next week felt hollow in strange ways. I'd pass the coffee aisle at the grocery store and think of her kitchen window cracked open. I'd catch myself reaching for my phone around 4 in the afternoon, like my body expected something. I almost went over again. Twice. The second time, I parked at the corner and just sat there with the engine running. Her house looked exactly the same. Curtains drawn halfway. Porch light on. I imagined knocking. Her opening the door. That steady look in her eyes. I imagined her saying, "This was a mistake." Or worse, "I don't regret it." My phone buzzed. Not her. A text from the girl at work. "Drinks tonight." I stared at it. It would have been easier. Cleaner. Age appropriate. Applauded. I typed back, "Maybe." Then I erased it. Instead, I opened our last conversation again. "I think we should take some space." My thumb hovered over the keyboard. "Is this about your husband? About Daniel? Or about me?" I typed one final message. "If this is you protecting me, I didn't ask you to." I stared at it for a long time, then locked my phone without sending it. The porch light at her house flickered once, then steadied. I stayed in the car until the engine timed out on its own, and I still didn't knock. I went back on a Thursday. No warning text. No rehearsed message. Just me standing on her doorstep at 7:12 p.m., heart beating like I was 19 again. For a second, I almost left. Then the door opened. She looked surprised. Not startled. Just unguarded. Like I'd caught her in the middle of being herself. "Hi," I said. A pause. "Hi." The house was quiet. No extra car in the driveway. No shadows at the dining table. "Can I come in?" I asked. She hesitated. Not long. Just enough to show it cost her something. "Okay." The kitchen light was on. Same cracked window. Same faint smell of coffee, even though there wasn't a mug in sight. We didn't sit right away. Just stood across from each other, the counter between us like a neutral border. "I didn't ask you to protect me," I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. She exhaled slowly. "I know." "Then why did you?" Her fingers found that thin gold ring again. Twisting. Untwisting. "Because I'm older," she replied. "Because I've lived through the part where you think wanting something is enough." "That's not fair." "No," she agreed quietly. "It isn't." Silence settled in. Not sharp. Just heavy. "My husband," she began, and the words still felt strange coming from her. Coming back wasn't about love. It was about familiarity. Habit. History. And I realized something. She looked up at me then, eyes clearer than I'd seen them in weeks. "I wasn't choosing him," she said. "I was choosing safety." The word hung there. "And me?" I asked. Her jaw tightened slightly. Not defensive. Honest. "You are not safe," she said. I almost smiled. "That's supposed to scare me." "It scares me." There it was. The crack in her composure. Small. Real. "I don't want to be your rebellion," she added. "Or your phase. I don't want to wake up one day and see regret in your face." "You won't. You don't know that." "I know how I feel." The room felt smaller. The distance between us thinner. "I tried to step back," she continued. "I told myself it was the right thing. That you'd move on. That you should." "And did you want me to?" She didn't answer immediately. Her eyes dropped to the counter. To my hands. To the space between us. "No," she said finally. Barely audible. Something in my chest loosened and tightened at the same time. "I'm not asking for forever," I said. "I'm asking for honesty. If this is too much for you, say that. Don't decide for both of us." Her eyes filled, but she didn't let anything fall. "You make me feel awake," she admitted. "And that's dangerous at my age." "It's not an age. It is when you've built your life around being responsible." I stepped closer. Slowly. Enough that she could stop me if she wanted to. She didn't. "I don't need you to be responsible for me," I said. Her breath caught. Just slightly. "And Daniel," she whispered. "We'll deal with that," I replied. Not careless. Just certain. She studied my face like she was searching for hesitation. Doubt. Youth. Whatever she was looking for, she must have found something solid. Because her shoulders lowered. "Okay," she said softly. Not dramatic. Not triumphant. Just okay. Her hand found mine on the counter. Warm. Steady. And this time, neither of us pulled away. We didn't tell Daniel right away. Life didn't turn cinematic. There was no dramatic reveal, no slammed doors, no speeches. Just a slow rearranging of routines. At first, it was Thursdays. I'd come over after work. Not sneaking. Not hiding. Just arriving. We'd cook something simple. She'd stand at the stove, sleeves pushed up, and I'd lean against the counter like I used to. Except now the space between us wasn't pretending to be neutral. The first time Daniel noticed, it wasn't explosive. He walked into the kitchen, saw us standing a little too close, and paused. There was a long second where nobody breathed. Then she said calmly, "We were going to talk to you." He looked at me, really looked at me, searching for something, guilt, maybe, or arrogance. All I had was steadiness. It wasn't easy. There were weeks of careful conversations, boundaries redefined, awkward dinners where silence did most of the talking. But nothing shattered. Time passed the way it does when you stop bracing for impact. Slow, ordinary, real. We still walked to that same park sometimes. Sat on the same bench. The swings still creaked. The street lamp still made everything look too honest. But now our hands rested together openly on the wood between us. One evening, months later, she brought tea in a thermos instead of making it at home. "Less predictable," she said with a small smile. "You always liked predictable. I've revised my tastes." I laughed, and she bumped her shoulder lightly against mine. I started staying over occasionally. Nothing dramatic. Just my toothbrush next to hers. My black coffee in the morning while she still chose tea. At 8:47 a.m., almost without fail, she'd open the kitchen window a crack, even in colder weather. "Habit," she'd say. But sometimes she'd glance at me while doing it, like she was checking whether I was still there. I always was. It wasn't perfect. There were still moments when the age difference surfaced, when someone mistook her for my older sister and she rolled her eyes afterward, or when I talked about career moves that made her quietly calculate timelines. But those moments didn't undo us. They just made us adjust. One night, sitting at the kitchen table long after the dishes were done, she traced the rim of her mug and said, "You know, I thought this would feel reckless. And it feels calm." I reached across the table and laced my fingers through hers. "That's because we stopped pretending it was a secret." She studied our hands for a second, then nodded. "Okay," she said again. The same soft okay from that Thursday night. Only now it carried less fear. More choice. Later, when the house was quiet and the window was cracked open just enough to let the night in, she rested her head against my shoulder. No grand declarations. No promises carved in stone. Just warmth. Steady breathing. The low hum of a life no longer paused. Sometimes I think back to that first text. "If you still want coffee, you know where I live." I do. And now, when she looks at me across the kitchen, there's no question in it anymore. Just recognition. Did this story stay with you? What kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next?